Hello, welcome to Brown Bird News. For the past 2 months, bird watching and bird feeding have become very popular. Our customer base has expanded and we've had lots of subscribers to our show. So I just wanted to say welcome. I'm Tatiana Thompson and I host this show. So the other day, my husband bought us a huge bag of black oil sunflower seeds. He was in a rush, so he left the bag on the front porch, came back 15 minutes later only to discover a chipmunk sitting atop the bag, helping herself or himself to all that seed. Those guys are always so hungry. This year there seems to be a lot of them because we get tons of emails and phone calls, people asking us what to do with them, how to stop them from eating all the bird seed. So here are a couple of tips and tricks that I have for you. So of course, if you have weight adjustable bird feeders, you can adjust the weights, but unfortunately chipmunks are too light, so you might end up excluding all the other birds. So stay away from adjusting the tension on your bird feeders. A pole with a baffle is the best solution, but I understand that not all of you can have that set up in your backyard. So next on my list is the type of seed that you can switch to that chipmunks are not too crazy about. So they don't really like plain safflower seed and Niger seed. So try that out. If you don't want to do that, then let's talk about what you can do to your squirrel buster bird feeders to prevent chipmunks from hanging out on them. So on this type of models, the Mini, Standard and Legacy, you can just remove, pop out the perches. I've showed you this before to deter large birds. Chipmunks have a hard time clinging to things. They really need a surface to eat on. Then if you have the Squirrel Buster Plus, adding a weather guard will make it very slippery for them to climb down and get to the bird feeder. And then for other models that we don't have a weather guard, you can actually use something like this. So this is a pizza aluminum tray, or you can use a pie tray. You can just cut a hole with the little tabs and then slip it over the feeder. Again, this will be really hard for chipmunks to climb over. It will be too slippery and they will not be able to stay on the feeder. Another thing is location of your bird feeder. Consider changing it. If chipmunks can climb down the feeder from a tree, then they will of course stay on the feeder. So try switching it to a place like the eaves of your house or a bracket that's attached to your house. Of course, if the exterior of your house is not made out of wood. And if all else fails, try to be friends with chipmunks. That's what we discovered a few years ago. Chipmunks are only out in the summer, so when catbirds arrive, I always put out apples and grapes for them. Not something new and fresh, only stuff that is not being used in the household. An apple that was dropped several times. So when I started doing that, I noticed that chipmunks absolutely love fruit. So they switch from hanging out under the feeders to eating all the fruit. So I have a dedicated area now for catbirds and chipmunks, and that seems to keep them busy. Well, I hope you can find something helpful in this. Joy Sommerer, a regular contributor to our photo contest, read an article about birds' weight shrinking due to the exposure to some pesticides. She would like to hear David's thoughts about it.
Hi Joy. Well, it's true that scientists have discovered that some migratory birds are shrinking in size as an adaptation for migrating. They also found that the birds are evolving longer wings to compensate for their smaller body size. The idea is that while a smaller body does not allow a bird to add on as much fat, the longer wings can get them where they want to go and faster. The 2019 study of neonicotinoid pesticides causing migrating birds to lose part of their body mass is not the same thing. But let's back up for a moment. Neonicotinoids are a fairly recent class of insecticides to be used. Two common ones are imidacloprid and chlorpyrifos. Farmers like them because they are applied to the seeds and then spread to all parts of the plants, including the roots, stems, flowers, etc., thereby thwarting insects at all levels. Environmentalists might have liked them because they disappear from the food chain very rapidly, unlike the now banned organochlorines like DDT that stuck around for decades. However, recent studies are beginning to show insidious effects of just tiny ingested amounts of these neonic pesticides on migrating songbirds. In 2017, a study of migratory white-crowned sparrows showed significant declines in body fat stores and overall body mass, as well as impaired orientation. 2 years later, that same research team published a second major study demonstrating body mass losses and delayed migration in the same species. Again, these were just very tiny amounts fed to the birds. Overall, it's looking like these neonic pesticides have the potential to impair the migratory ability of songbirds, which can have disastrous consequences. If a bird can't put on and store enough body fat for energy, if they leave even 2 or 3 days later than the other birds, or if they can't find their way, they'll either not survive or find a mate for nesting. Just so you know, both of these studies were published in one of our very best scientific journals. I also know 2 of the scientists, and they are extremely reputable.
You know, with kids, dogs, and birds around, using any kind of pesticides or weed killers is not even an option in our household, never have been. And as you know, we've started a huge garden this summer, and I haven't done it in many years, so we're learning. And what we discovered is that weeds grow faster than we can deal with them, especially between the rows. So what we've, after a bit of researching, what we discovered is that using clover will actually help control the weeds. It will also enrich the soil, and it attracts all sorts of pollinators. And every morning when we come out to check on our garden, we see so many birds and snakes picking all sorts of things between the rows. And you know, there are actually some gardeners that use clover on their rows. You see, we're still new to this, so we haven't experimented, but they plant their vegetables and then they cover everything in clover to keep the weeds down. Try it out. For years, scientists have been trying to figure out why the corvid family, you know, ravens, crows, jays, magpies, are so much smarter than any other birds. I mean, their problem-solving skills are incredible, and it seems like every week I read an article about how smart these birds are. Well, we might have an answer now. Corvids tend to stay as a family for much longer than any other birds. Jays will stay as a family unit for up to 4 years. In a recent study performed on Siberian jays and New Caledonian crows, researchers had a chance to observe young birds learn life skills from their parents. And what they also noticed is that parents were being very tolerant to their kids, fooling around, making mistakes while being taught. Scientists also believe this adds to what they refer to flexible learning, an ability to adapt to new situations and to continuously learn. For many years, Colombians thought that the Antioquia bushfinch was completely extinct. It's a bird native to the area in Colombia called Antioquia. Its last sighting there was in 1971, and ever since, the bird has become a myth. However, in 2018, Rodolfo Carrero Pena took a picture of a bird he'd never seen before, and that started the rediscovery of the species. After a long time of searching, conservationists managed to find 20 birds living in the wild, which makes them critically endangered. Now they're using this rediscovery to work with local farmers because their farming practices are not really regulated and they lead to a lot of habitat destruction. They're hoping that by educating farmers, by showing them how important this bird is, they will be able to bring the population of the Antioquia bushfinch back up. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has issued a draft environmental impact statement that will allow companies to injure and kill birds during their daily activities as long as those takes, as they're referred to, are not intentionally trying to injure birds. This draft is the continuation of the destruction of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act that was started in 2018, and an official version of the draft is to be published this fall. Audubon, American American Birding Association and 8 states are now actively challenging the draft, and comments from the public are welcome until July 20th. You can actually sign a petition. And if the draft is not stopped, there are already states that have started asserting their authority to stop and prosecute companies that are not actively taking steps to protect birds during their daily activities. I hope that there's enough challenge to stop this draft from becoming official. And that's it. That's all for this episode. Our photo contest is still open. The theme is shorebirds. Some people are not quite sure what kind of birds belong to this category, so I will include the list in my email. If you don't see it, send me an email, Tatiana@brownbirdcare.com, and I will forward you the link. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you in 2 weeks.